Great. I'm Nick from Sibling Architecture, here to present to you today Aireys Inlet Primary School Art and Music Hub. The project is located on Wadawurrung country in Aireys Inlet on the Surf Coast on the Great Ocean Road. I guess its context is nestled within a residential context in the town of Aireys Inlet, and it's very much at the confluence of the bush and the ocean, and you can really start to see it in this image. The whole kind of nature of Aireys Inlet is really houses and infrastructure nestled within this bush-like setting. The school is pretty tiny. It has 80 students housed in 4 classrooms, and is a really sort of tight-knit, small community. So we worked very closely with the students and the families and the school community for this project. It was a VSBA project as well, I should mention. So the facilities of the school included, I guess, admin facilities for the staff as you enter into the building, and a reception, bathrooms and a library, a large outdoor covered deck, which the 2 classroom banks look into, and then down here was a relocatable building that was definitely at the end of its lifespan. And a really important part of the community was art and culture, and they had no functioning art space or music space, so it was really important to bring that into the curriculum for the school, and so that really became the main element of the project. You can begin to see here the architecture of the existing school, built in the 1990s, and the relocatable building here, which was an eyesore, and yet really again from the 80s, I think, definitely at the end of its lifespan. So this beautiful bush setting that the site has, and beautiful sweeping views over the ocean up on top of the Aireys Inlet cliffs, is really kind of what typifies the whole site and the character, and it's, I guess, really embedded into the identity of the site. There's also a protected nature zone to the top of the site as well, which has an existing yarning circle in it, and has protected yam daisies and orchards as well. So this beautiful bush setting is also the biggest challenge of the site. So because of its setting, it was given a BAL FZ rating. So BAL FZ is the highest rating assigned to AS 353959, and has direct exposure to flames, radiant heat and ember attack. This project had an added complication of being within 10 metres of the flame hazard, so it meant you could only use systems tested to AS 1530, which is very limited to firefly and steel cladding. So we discovered that through the project. So something like blockwork, which you would think would be rated to this thing, because it hasn't been tested, can't be used in that setting. So it was definitely a good learning process for that. The project, so the siting of the project was located on the site of where that existing relocatable was. We looked at different siting to do with the kind of BAL FZ rating, and really, because of the size of the school and the teaching, it meant that that was the most sensible spot to put it, because you couldn't have staff kind of leaving the other building to go to another site. We also consulted with the Wadawurrung, and I guess this confluence of the bush and the ocean was really important, and again, art and culture within the traditional owner society was also an important thing to bring back into the story of the architecture. So we began to look at the flora and fauna of the site and bringing out, I guess, tones within the architecture, and so creating an architectural palette on the exterior that was harmonious and really, I guess, fitted in with that bush setting. A similar approach was taken to the interior, and I guess a little bit more of a playful palette began to evolve, of greens and oranges, and highlights of timber and all very robust materials, being an art and music hub. The building itself sits at the end of this circulation access through the school, and really, I guess, cements itself at the end of that shared courtyard. And in terms of the facilities within the building itself, we have the art room over to the left. We've also got a learning circle, which again is a reference back to the yarning circle. There's a rock or learning landscape to the outside of the building as well, which is about kind of outdoor learning. And again, we have the music room located here, and an operable wall that sits in between the 2 buildings. This when the operable wall is open, it becomes the biggest space in the school. So in hot or cold weather, assemblies can be held in this building as well, instead of out on the deck. So the treatments of the elevation are really driven by the exposure to the flame hazard. And so this top elevation here is that steel elevation. And then in elevation B and C, because we're outside of the 10-metre zone, we could start to introduce blockwork and the non-combustible FC sheeting as well. So you can see here as you walk down the corridor of the building, you get that gesture or that welcoming, I guess, bright colour pop that comes to you to announce this kind of art and cultural building within the site. And the entry to the building is sandwiched between the textured block walk and really acts as a wayfinding tool. So understanding where the entries are for the students. The inset there is also about weather protection into the entries, but also begins to house or hide some of the bushfire shutters that we had to introduce into the building as well. And the covered deck starts to connect out to that learning landscape that I mentioned earlier. So as you step outside into that learning landscape, you can see the big northern window here that looks out onto the nature reserve. Again, the VSBA requirements mean that you can have very little sun shading into direct sunlight into the learning spaces. So it necessitated this large sun shading awning. The landscape there, I guess, art classes can be held outside as well as, I guess, general play space, but it's also strategically located where pick up and drop off happens. So this becomes another gathering space at the start and end of the day. And the whole site really acts as a kind of community parkland when the school's not in operation. It was important to us that this sun shading device that we introduced was, I guess, a really simple device. So it was intentionally very fine and didn't have unnecessary bulk or guttering, and is a simple, I guess, folded sheet of corrugated metal and is connected to a structure that's then connected back to the superstructure of the architecture as well. Again, this image really typifies that bush setting, but also starts to demonstrate that fire threat that we have. And you can begin to see here from this from the green awning to the left and then folding down to the side, we have that side of the building that had to kind of meet that strict 10-metre zone requirement of the firefly and the steel cladding. Each of the openings in the building is protected by a BAL FZ fire shutter as well, which means that the building can be completely shut down in a catastrophic fire event, and also adds an extra layer of security. The requirements of the BAL FZ standard mean that the building is very airtight as well. So it's got good air tightness from that point of view. The building's all electric and recyclable materials were all introduced through the project as well. Moving into the interior, you begin to see the more playful, I guess, and cheerful palette come to life with these oranges and greens. The floor treatments really begin to start to delineate different zones of where, I guess, messy work can happen, and that learning circle where theoretical elements, so that's a kind of a carpet mat that's inset into the floor as well, where the teacher can begin to, I guess, give theory classes, and I guess timber joinery begins to create storage. There's also like a staff desk and a whole lot of different joinery elements within the space as well.
We're at 8 minutes.
That's at 8 minutes. There's the operable wall into the other space, which can also be a canvas for more artwork. And yeah, I think really that's the end of the pres, but in a way, I think this project, there's a lot in residential BAL FZ architecture, but you don't really see much in the commercial or public space. And so we sort of hope that this can become a bit of an exemplar within that space for how to deal with those kind of strict bushfire settings restrictions.
Thank you.